Okay, have you ever seen that little bit of unexpected spotting and your mind just starts racing? It happens to so many of us, and it can be super confusing, especially if you're trying to conceive. So today, we're going to cut through all that confusion and get straight to the facts. Let's get into it.
So, is that spotting just your period making an early entrance? Or could it be something else? You know, the very first teeny tiny whisper of a sign that you might be pregnant. That is the big question, right? And we're going to answer it by breaking down the science behind one of the earliest clues you can possibly get, implantation bleeding.
To really truly understand what's going on, we have to follow this incredible journey that takes place inside your body. Let's trace the exact steps that can lead to this super early sign of pregnancy.
First things first, what even is implantation? Well, after an egg gets fertilized, it starts traveling down the fallopian tube, and all along the way, it's dividing and growing. Once it's made up of about 100 cells, it gets a new name, a blastocyst. Implantation is that critical moment when this little blastocyst snuggles up and attaches to the wall of your uterus. And this isn't just some small step. This is it. This is the official start of a pregnancy.
Now, let's talk about timing, because this is where all the confusion really begins. In a typical cycle, you ovulate around day 14 to 18. Then, the fertilized egg takes a few days to make its trip. This means implantation itself usually happens about 10 to 14 days after you ovulate. Now look where that lands on the calendar, right around day 24 to 28. See the problem? That's just about the same time you'd be expecting your period. This timing is absolutely the most crucial detail.
So, that leads us to the next big question. If this is all a totally natural, normal process, why would it cause any bleeding at all? Well, the answer is all about how that little embryo gets settled in for the long haul.
Okay, so picture this. The lining of your uterus is super rich with tiny blood vessels, getting everything ready. As the embryo burrows into this cozy lining, it can kind of jostle some of those small vessels, and that can release a tiny bit of blood. Now, if that blood makes its way out quickly, it'll probably look pink. But if it takes a little longer to show up, it can turn brown by the time you actually see it.
All right, so we know the what and the why. Now for the part you've been waiting for. How in the world do you tell this spotting apart from a regular period? Let's break down the key differences, side by side.
Just at a glance, the difference is pretty huge. Honestly, implantation spotting is kind of the opposite of a period in almost every way. It's super light, it's often pink or brown, and it's over before you know it. Your period, on the other hand, well, you know the drill. It starts light but then builds to a heavier red flow that sticks around for several days.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty details. The first huge clue is the timing. Implantation spotting almost always happens a few days before your period is supposed to start. Next, let's talk about flow, and this is probably the biggest giveaway of all. It's just spotting. We're talking a few drops here and there on and off. It's not a consistent flow that needs a pad or a tampon. And finally, look at the color and duration. It's usually pinkish or brownish, not that bright period red, and it's super brief. It can last anywhere from just a few hours up to 3 days max.
But you know what? The spotting itself is rarely the only clue. Right around the time of implantation, your body's hormones start to shift gears, and that can kick off a whole bunch of other subtle early symptoms you can be on the lookout for.
So along with the spotting, you might feel some really mild cramping, and we'll get to what that feels like in just a second. But you could also notice things like your breasts feeling sore, being a little more moody, or even feeling a bit nauseous. All of these are classic early signs that are driven by the brand new hormonal shifts happening in your body.
Okay, let's zero in on those cramps for a minute, because they feel totally different from period cramps. It's actually a really hard feeling to describe, but there are some common ways people talk about it.
Yeah, it's way different from that intense, aching pain of menstrual cramps. Instead, it's often described as something much more subtle and fast, like a little flutter or a gentle pulling feeling, or maybe even a quick prickle deep in your lower abdomen, sometimes just on one side. The most important takeaway here is the intensity. If the cramping you're feeling is strong and painful like your normal period, it's probably not from implantation. The one word you have to remember for implantation cramping is mild.
So you've analyzed the spotting, you've thought about the cramps, you've noted some other symptoms, but these are all just clues in a big puzzle. How do you get the final, definitive answer? Well, there's really only one way to know for sure.
Here's the game plan, and it's simple. Step 1, and I know this is the absolute hardest part, you have to wait. Wait until the day your period is officially late. If it doesn't show up, give it another 2 or 3 days.
That little bit of extra time is so important because it allows the pregnancy hormone, HCG, to build up enough for a home test to actually pick it up. Then, and only then, is it time to take that test.
And there you have it. Those two little lines are the confirmation you were looking for. It means that that little bit of spotting you saw a few days ago, it wasn't your period after all. It was very, very likely the first physical sign that your pregnancy journey had officially begun.
So the next time you see some of that unexpected spotting, you won't just be left wondering and worrying, you'll be informed. And while everyone's experience is a little different, you now have the tools to decode the signs your body might be sending you. So could this be your first clue? Now you know exactly what to look for.